Guys, keep me in your prayers because internal struggles, life problems. So make sure you're always praying, make sure you're always reading the Bible, because that is the truth. Bog oak today we're doing, and I am just dejected. I have no energy, guys. But having this one-to-one chat, personal commentary, maybe you'll learn more about me, learn about the stress of the IB grade 12 life. And when you have EEs due, when you have all your TOK presentation, TOK essay, and you have your English WA due, and I'm not even in physics or chem. Chem, they have an exam. Bio, who cares, right? You just memorize. And history, who cares? Econ students, they have their IA, they have their chem exam, they have their TOK essay, TOK presentation. Our extended essays due again. She set like 100 due dates, and we have our IOC, we have our WA, and this is the life. Let's start our 8-minute timer. Let me get my phone. Guys, just be patient. Okay, Bog Oak is a poem by Seamus Heaney, published in 1972, and it continues the theme of the bog land and the description of the peat and this pastoral imagery that Heaney has really established his name with. And specifically in this poem, Bog Oak, it illustrates from the point of view of a carter his journey and the search into the past. And in general, the carter represents how really represents, but he sends the message how to all of Ireland, how the ideas of the past are relevant, pertinent to the present time because of this regression of ideas and because of the appearance of violence. And in terms of the Irish conflict, specifically the idea of how history must be preserved lest it be corrupted. And I will be beginning my analysis with the first stanza, this introduction of the carter. Instead of the carter is not the persona. The argument is that the illustration of the carter depicts the attitude of the modern society towards the past, but also how integral the past is to the present. And this is used in the first line with the metaphor of the trophy for the carter, because the trophy actually represents this idea of money, of how the trophy is the bog oak, which is this type of wood that has been fermented in peat over time, and it's the beginning of the fossilization stage of the wood. However, it looks black and it can be used for building rafters. But is this really, why not use regular wood? Why do we have to use the past in a superficial manner? Why do we have to continue to build up all of these superfluous elements of our society, even though they will just gather dust over time, as it says, cobwebs? For example, look at this doll I bought, which I never played with, but it was $7.99. But okay, the idea of the long season rib continues this to support the thesis of bog oak, which is because there's this hyphenated word here, as there is multiple times throughout the poem. This idea that there is a connection between humanity and nature. This idea of the long season rib, this specific use of diction, is actually building up the imagery of the connection that should exist but doesn't, because they're bringing the nature, but they're bringing the wrong parts of nature. these ideas so much. In this poem, there's so much black imagery. This idea of smoke, of the black bog oak, the rib, also the Creole fillers. This idea that there's a warped image of nature, and the figurative language which supports it. And there's a double entendre in line 6 of I might tarry. Tarry could mean being covered with tar, again contributing to what I just said about the oil. Not about the oil, the blackness. But it could also mean to meddle with these mustache dead, the Creole fillers, who are the stereotypical images of what Ireland considers to be the ancestors. And the fact that the persona, who is not the Carter, is eavesdropping on their hopeless wisdom, because the fact that the wisdom is hopeless means that nobody is listening to them except the speaker. And this continues to my second argument, which is blindness. Blindness, the fact that the wisdom, they contain wisdom. The ancestors have grasp to this knowledge, but they continue to ignore it, because as in the last line of the third stanza, struggling over the half door. This idea of the burning as a simile in the 11th line, and continuing on, especially when it becomes much more obvious to us and conspicuous that using the illustration of the cart track and the fact that it's being blurred means that when you look into the past has been corrupted and you can't even see what you are looking for, and instead you get a warped image. And this idea is supported by this analogy of the no cutters of mistletoe, no oak grows. So the mistletoe is identified as a weed, although we may think kissy, but going back in time to see the no human stage. That's what I wrote down. Basically, the idea that cutting the mistletoe is, in fact, something that humans do, and it's a positive thing. But this is actually a deception that Heaney uses to illustrate how our image of our views on the past have been corrupted. And this leads me to my third argument, which is the allusion to Edmund Spenser. And the significance of this allusion is mainly that as a fellow poet, Edmund Spenser also advocated for the destruction of Irish culture and language. He basically took he was originally English, and he moved to Ireland, and his goal there was to promote the ideals of the Elizabethan era and the Tudors back in the 16th century. And this is why when we have this illustrating the dreaming sunlight, and even quoting his own words against him, encroached upon this use of diction to signify invading, and also the idea of irony. The geniuses who creep. This geniuses is used in a mocking tone, that they plan evil, they plan violence. And this is basically drawn back to the concept of the Troubles in the 1960s and 70s, and how the Irish people were fighting against themselves, against Britain. In this, it has almost become a civil war, a conflict between different ethnic groups. And this is why the poem ends off with this illustration of watercress and carrion in a pessimistic tone. The tone of the entire poem, even though it switches from one persona to the speaker to the just making out Edmund Spenser, looking into the past and only seeing this evil man who planned the destruction of Ireland, and then taking that for all that there is, rather than looking even further back. All of this ends with this pessimism, this tone, and it's all highlighted by the structure of the poem, the 4-line quatrains, never changing, staying consistent. So, I am 4 seconds over, whatever, who cares. I did not talk about sound devices because I could not find many sound devices. I found smoke struggles as an alliteration, I found no, the repetition of no in the 6th stanza, but let me know how I'm doing, because doing this all in a row, it actually is very time consuming. Bog Oak, yeah. I have like 6 poems left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's going to be 3.5 hours of my life taken up. Instead of studying Hamlet. Instead of, I don't know, pondering life.